This is Justin Case of America Newscape. Today we are excited to introduce Stewart Skloss, Pura Vida Tequila founder, for some tequila insider information to our audience. Hello, Stewart. Welcome to America Newscape.
Thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here today.
We're excited to have you. Hey, and everybody, at the conclusion of this interview, Pura Vida has graciously provided you a few spectacular Pura Vida recipes, and of course, my favorite, tequila guacamole. They prefer to call it tequila guacamole, but I want to call it tequila. Stewart, please get us started. Tell us a bit about your calling to create this remarkable tequila.
Well, I started my first tequila company when I was about 20 years old. I had the attention span of a Mexican jumping bean. I was living in Guadalajara, Mexico. I'd gone to Universidad de Antonio in Guadalajara through the University of the Texas Exchange Program. And we were traveling from Guadalajara to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and stumbled across the town of Tequila, Mexico. And my roommate at that time had a black passport, which means a diplomatic passport. And so before we knew it, we had all the owners of the local distilleries coming out of the woodwork to invite us to their place. They knew that if they made friends with a U.S. diplomat, that their time in line at a consulate or at a embassy to get a visa would be much shorter. So we never made it to Puerto Vallarta. We wound up staying at Tequila, Mexico for 3 nights, actually almost 4 nights. But we had a fabulous time, and we wound up creating what was called Dos Hermanos Tequila. We sent a couple of cases back to our friends in Austin, Texas, and before we knew it, we were, at that time, like I said, we had the attention span of a Mexican jumping bean. We were off trying to bring Burger King to Mexico and Wendy's and all sorts of other things. But fast forward 25 years, I was with a friend of mine and a business partner, John Paul DeJoria, at dinner, and he had just informed me that he had sold 28% of Patron, and that he was going to eventually sell the whole thing if the price was right, but that for right now that he really had a passion to continue on, and that the reason he sold 28% was his business partner had gotten him into a deal that he just couldn't resist, and he decided to go ahead and sell 28%. He said, "Didn't you have a tequila company when you were 20-something?" I said, "I did." And he said, And I asked him, I said, "JP, how much did you sell it for, the 28%? And he said, "Well, $800 million. And I said, "How much?" And he said, $800 million. And he said, "You should have stuck with it." And I said, "Should have stuck with what?" And he said, "You should have stuck with the tequila company you started when you were 20. And he said, "I could take that." And he said, I said, "For life?" And he said, "I could take that too." And so we wound up having another long chat. And he said, "Stewart, you really ought to do this again. You ought to start a tequila company." And I said, I can't afford it, JP. And he said, "If you wait till you can afford it, you'll never do it." And so at that time, I decided to pack up and go spend a couple of months in Guadalajara and in Jalisco as a whole, searching all the various distilleries and learning as much as I could about tequila. I visited the top 20 tequila distilleries by reputation, not by dollar volume or quantity of tequila sold. Narrowed it down to 10. I did a taste test with local bartenders, tequila aficionados, waiters, anybody that would come to see which profiles they liked the best from each distillery. The distillery I chose was a small distillery in the highlands of Jalisco in Arandas, just outside of the city limits of Arandas. Feliciano Vivanco y Asociados. Feliciano was 89 years old, and I loved how he had a passion to keep everything so nice and neat and clean. And we needed to be able to rent space at a distillery. We didn't have the ability or the cash to be able to buy our own distillery, but it was almost like renting a kitchen. We wanted to create a profile that everybody in the U.S. would enjoy. Mexicans love spice and bite. And Americans, you've got different types of profiles. You've got some like spice and bite, some like whatever it may be, but everybody in the United States likes flavor. So we needed to create a tequila that had a fantastic flavor without losing any of the attributes that comes with a good tequila. There's good tequilas and bad tequilas, just like there's good whiskeys and bad whiskeys. but we wanted to make something that every palate would enjoy, whether male, female, young, old. So we decided to go ahead and start with the foundation of all spirits being water. We asked 100 bartenders in the United States, what's your favorite water? What's your least favorite? What's your favorite bottle of tequila? What's your least favorite bottle of tequila? For various reasons, to decide whether or not what type of shape they wanted, how they fit in the well rack, etc. So we designed our bottle so that it would be able to be held by a man or a woman, and it would sit nicely in a well rack, and that had some authentic look to it. I'll explain real quick. I've got one over here. This is our Blanco. And so what you have here, this is what an agave looks like underground. So like a piña. And this was my idea, so this looked like a light bulb. I thought, this would be perfect for looking like a light bulb. And then we have the labels painted on. Some people call it child labor. We like to refer to them as interns. I'm kidding about that. We do. We have these things put on with a silk screen by paint. They're in Mexico. They do a fabulous job. And then we had the top of the bottle made so when a bartender or waiter is pouring the tequila, they're not going to have an issue with it falling out of their hands, and then they have to pay for the bottle. So this lip catches your hand. And so I also had the top made here thin enough that a man or a woman or somebody with small hands and large hands would have no problem picking up and grabbing it. You'll also notice that the bottle is very heavy. I had the glass made twice as thick so that if a bartender or waiter dropped it, they wouldn't have a problem with it breaking. I don't suggest dropping it on the concrete floor, but I've dropped them plenty of times and they bounce right back up and have been able to catch them. But once we had the foundation of the packaging and we needed to move on to the water. Water is the foundation of all spirits. Out of the 100 bottles that, or out of the 100 waiters that we spoke to, the 100 bottles that they all listed, almost 76% was very, very favorable. They gave ratings of 1 to 5 for Fiji water. So we went to Siemens and asked, how do we get this water profile out of a place in Mexico? And they said a well water is best water. That's your best way to keep consistency, because consistency is the most important thing to me. You go to your favorite restaurant, steak restaurant, because you like their steaks, your favorite Mexican restaurant, because they like their enchiladas, whatever it may be. So consistency in the water is what we needed to do. So we bought a 5-stage water purification process, and we installed that at Feliciano Vivanco y Asociados. And then we had the packaging. And so now we needed to make a liquor a tequila that everybody would like. We wanted to maintain the integrity and the tradition of tequila without some of the harshness that some tequilas have had. We've all had those bad nights, those tequila mornings that you swear you'll never do it again. You don't have that with a good tequila. And our tequila, of course I'm biased, I'm going to tell you is the best tequila you'll ever have. But we decided with our Blanco, we were going to make a Blanco that anybody could sip. It's easier to make a reposado that anybody can sip, or añejo, because you're aging in barrels, and there's certain things people do to make it more of a flavor profile. But the most purest form of tequila is the Blanco. So what we decided to do was start with our agave. We only use agave that have 24% or higher in sugar content. We test 1 out of every 10 instead of 1 out of every 100 to make sure that we have the purest agave we possibly could have. We use the 5-stage water purification process for our water. And then we also use a triple distillation. Tradition meets modern technology, twice in copper, once in stainless steel. And one of the things that I took away from Feliciano Vivanco, who was one of our first partners in the distillery, was he used to have these giant wooden speakers that were just over the fermentation tanks. They would play Bach and Beethoven. And he said, look, it makes the tequila dance. And I really didn't have the heart to tell him that you blast sound waves at microbes and they're going to move, and you stop blasting sound waves and they're going to stop. So what we do is we actually play mariachi music, Mexican mariachi music. We play it in the fermentation tanks, over the fermentation tanks. We do that during the distillation process, and we also do it in the barrel rooms. We like to say it puts a little bit of a little bit of dance, a little bit of song in every step along the process, and in every sip comes a little bit of the desire to sing and dance, etc. So with the packaging complete, the liquid complete. All right, so on to our reposado. One of the most important things with the reposado is consistency. Same thing, very important across all three expressions, or all four expressions if you have an extra añejo. But so often, tequila companies will use a variance in barrels. They'll use barrels from Jack Daniels, from Jim Beam, from Crown, wherever the heck they can get the stuff from. So it'll be a hodgepodge of flavor profiles across one expression. So consistency being so important to me, I really wanted to make sure that we had the same consistency across our reposado and our añejo. So most people age their reposados for 3+ months and their añejos for a year plus. We do 6 to 8 months for our reposado in single generation Jack Daniels barrels. When they come in, we fire them once, clean them out, and then we keep the reposado in there for 6 to 8 months, and the añejo stays in for 16 to 18 months. On our cognac, we pull them out after about 18 months. On our extra añejo, we pull it out after about 18 months. We put them into cognac barrels, cognac casks, so to pull a little bit more of that extra profile. When you see tequila that's a dark brown, and they say, oh, it's because of the cask we put it in, bullshit. It's flavoring, it's coloring. And when you see these dark tequilas, that's what they're doing. They're doing additives. We don't use any additives at all, none whatsoever.
What type of additives would those be? Like Coke extract, corn syrup,
vanilla, all sorts of things. Chocolate. It depends. Things to hire the harshness that would not be there had they taken a little bit of an extra step and spent a little bit more money and a little bit more care in making that first bottle.
So to clarify, they could actually bottle turpentine with all the additives they put in to try and make it taste better, I assume.
To try to make it taste better. I don't know if you could make turpentine taste any better. But
well, I bet these guys could. I'm sorry. Okay.
No. But there's a lot of companies that do that, and so we wanted to stay pure and true to tequila and just make a fine tequila that has a great profile that, again, anybody, male, female, young, old, would really appreciate. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I've had a bottle in a day and never had a hangover. Never. The time when you have hangovers, when you start mixing sugars and things like that, you can have a problem. It's like a bourbon and Coke or something like that, where you can wind up with one hell of a sugar hangover the next morning. So we launched. I created the company. I left what I was doing before. I was in every country you never wanted to go through, and or two for 10 years. I'll leave the names of those countries out. Many of them you do. I spent a lot of time in Eurasia, Africa, and the Middle East in a previous life. And so this was my opportunity to really spend some time in Mexico, the country I love. Great people. I love the people in Eurasia, Africa, the Middle East as well. But Mexico is dear to my heart. And so I spent the first 2 years creating the profile, creating the packaging. Everything we have is made in Mexico. We don't buy our bottles from China and have them shipped to Mexico. A lot of companies do for cost savings. So I sat down with John Paul DeJoria and with Tito Beverage. Tito's a great friend of mine, been a friend of mine since I was 15. We came up with a business plan, and Tito said basically it's $10 million to drill the well and $20 million to complete it was what he had suggested. And JP said there's 3 ways to build a company. You have a ton of money and you put it into marketing and the distribution will come, or 2, you have a ton of money and you put it into a sales force and distribution will come from that, or 3, you've got enough money to make it about 10 years and the distribution, your network will be out there, and then you can go ahead and start marketing to the world. Tito is a 24-year overnight success. When we first did my business plan, he was at 325,000 cases. He's now at plus 10 million. Just fantastic. I'm so proud of him. He's done such a great job. JP, in the meantime, has gone and sold the balance of Patron. He did a fabulous job with that. And he's got such a kind heart and such a good soul. He puts so much of the money that he's made through the years into charity and helping the community out and helping out young entrepreneurs. I'm proud to have both of those guys available for just a phone call away to help us get to where we want to go. But we're in our 8th year now of actual distribution. Like I said, we started 10 years ago, and we're very excited. We're in 43 states. Don't let that impress you. There's some states we're only selling a couple of cases. Our core distributor across the U.S. is RNDC, Republic National Distributing Company. They RNDC acquired Young's Market. We love the people out at Young's Market. Vern Underwood and his 2 sons are just fantastic. And there's a guy running California and that part of the business for RNDC, Jay Johnson. He's been a mentor since we started. He's been fantastic. And Tom Cole, the CEO of RNDC, and Bob Hendrickson, all those guys have just been great to work with. So unfortunately, in late February, early March, a lot of our business started going away temporarily. 60% of our business is in bars and restaurants, clubs. And with the closing of all that, 60% of our business basically went away. And people have really moved more towards the 175 pulls. The 175 pull are the handles, the big bottles of the handles. They're going more towards quantity instead of quality, which it was interesting. We were really on a good path for the last 10 years of people going after quality instead of quantity. But in economic times like we're seeing right now, it's difficult for people to justify paying $30, $40 for a bottle of tequila or vodka or bourbon when they can get one for 20. And if they're mixing it a lot, quite often they really don't care. And as we're seeing with the bars and the restaurants and the clubs coming back, where they used to have a great selection of scotch and vodka and bourbon and tequila, they aren't ordering as much now. They're going more towards the core brands. We're an independent brand, but the brand's owned by Diageo, Brown-Forman, Moet Hennessy, Pernod Ricard, Campari, etc. Those groups. But we were very excited that we were only down by 20 cases last month. It could have been 2,000 cases, but we've got a good fan base there that really believe in quality and consistency, and they love our brand, and the supporters have been out there for the last 3 months, and we've been going through this COVID-19. That's 4 months now, I guess, since we've been going through this COVID-19 crisis, and so we're excited. We're excited for the future. We're excited for next steps. We are about ready to launch our new bottle for our Extra Añejo. We had Extra Añejo available in the United States until about a year ago. The group out of California bought everything we had, so I guess we should be happy for that. But if I have to tell one more person that calls and asks about where they can get our Extra Añejo that we don't have any, it's very frustrating. So I think I've kind of taken it from the beginning to where we are now. We've got a fabulous team put together, a good core team. We're building on that team. We are now getting in the digital age. I believe that's how we got together. A young man who came to us from Rice University, a recent grad, who has an undergraduate degree in digital marketing and an MBA from Rice. Taylor Whiteley has just been doing a fabulous job with getting us prepared for the new modern age of digital marketing and things like this YouTube channel and all the other ways we communicate directly to consumers that are consumers and fans of tequila and brown whiskeys.
Well, Stewart, I believe that I sought you out because I found that you were a very, very passionate, progressive American company. And I believe that your passion, your team's passion, and in working with some of that team, you're going to build a passionate customer base that are going to demand the quality. And I think it's your passion that's produced that quality. And one of the gems you shared that everybody should kind of put in their back pocket, if you don't like the coffee you're drinking at home, instead of changing coffee brands, you might want to improve the water a little bit.
Absolutely.
And that is the base of everything.
Yeah, water is the foundation of all spirits, and some people don't realize that.
And cooking, for that matter. Now, everybody, if you get a chance to check out their website, you'll enjoy that time. Whether you're a tequila drinker or not, there's some wonderful drink recipes. But Before I wrap this up, Stewart, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
I probably should have prepared for that question. Well, I guess just don't forget that the world started going to shit when Elvis started shaking his hips.
And Stewart wanted to tell you to drink more tequila.
And we'll drink more Pura Vida Tequila.
Okay.
If you're going to do it right. You know, you've had the rest. Now it's time to have the best. Pura Vida.
Yeah, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay, sharing a glimpse into Pura Vida. This has been Justin Case and Stewart Skloss. Additional information and links are provided in this video's read more. And the coolest drink recipes you're going to find are tagged at the end. Plus, my favorite, tequila guacamole. And let's remind everybody to support American businesses at every opportunity. Plus, please consider subscribing to this channel.
Mm-hmm.